Welcome to Revenge with Madison. I didn't get an invitation to my brother's wedding, so I went on a journey of self-discovery instead. Sorry, dear, this event is only for the people we actually cherish, my mother said with that familiar sting in her voice. Dad added, with his usual dismissive chuckle. Some people just don't belong at family celebrations. My aunt chimed in with her signature cruelty. Real family means real family, honey. When the wedding was canceled because of financial collapse, the whole family started begging me for help, but it was too late. My name is Madison Cole. I'm 28. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. What happens when the scapegoat they cast aside holds the very key to their survival? I still remember the exact moment when reality hit me like cold water. Everyone else received those glossy envelopes tied with silver ribbon, but my mailbox stayed empty day after day. When I finally gathered the courage to ask, Mom's words sliced through me like venom. Only for people we cherish. Dad's chuckle felt like a punch to my chest as he called me the family disappointment. Aunt Patricia twisted the knife deeper with her declaration about real family. So, I did the only thing that made sense in that moment. I smiled, nodded, and walked away. But inside, something fundamental had shifted. While they toasted each other and planned their picture-perfect moments, I opened my laptop and did something I had never done before. I booked a flight to Italy, using the money I had been secretly saving to pay off their mounting debts. The cobblestone streets of Rome became my sanctuary. I took pictures of ancient fountains, ate gelato alone but in complete peace, and told myself over and over, they can't hurt me if I'm not there to be hurt. But pain has a way of following you across oceans, doesn't it? Their voices replayed in my head during quiet moments, rejection sharp enough to echo through centuries-old architecture. Still, distance gave me something I had never experienced before: clarity. If I was always the disappointment, the black sheep, the one who didn't belong, then why did they constantly lean on me for favors? Why did their irrelevant sister pay their bills more than once? Why was I always the first person they called when crisis struck? Then came the twist that changed everything. A frantic message popped up during my peaceful dinner at a small Roman restaurant. Wedding might be canceled. We need you. Please help. I stared at those words until they blurred, my pasta growing cold. The people who had erased me from their perfect family portrait now begged for my signature to rewrite their story. But I had already chosen my role, and it wasn't theirs to define anymore. The messages didn't stop. They multiplied like a virus. By the time my plane landed back home, my phone was overflowing with desperation dressed as family obligation. From Mom, Madison, we were just being dramatic. You know that, right? Please, you have to help us fix this mess. From Dad, it's just money, sweetheart. Families help each other out. Don't be stubborn about this. From Aunt Patricia, if you cared about your brother at all, you wouldn't let his special day fall apart like this. I scrolled through them in the silence of my apartment, each word dripping with hypocrisy so thick I could taste it. A week ago, I was the disappointment, the outcast, the one who didn't belong at their celebration. Now, suddenly, I was their lifeline, their salvation, their last hope. I didn't answer a single message. Instead, I dropped my bags, lit my favorite lavender candle, and sat quietly at my kitchen table. Their desperation wasn't shocking to me anymore. It was predictable, almost scripted. They had built this wedding the same way they built every facade in our family, with borrowed money, inflated pride, and the quiet expectation that I would hold it all together from the shadows while being publicly dismissed. But this time, their foundation had massive cracks running through it. The phone rang again. My brother Marcus's voice came through, shaky and pleading. Maddie, please. You know, I wouldn't ask if it wasn't absolutely serious. We just need $30,000 to clear the venue debt and vendor payments. Then everything can go ahead as planned, and we can all move forward. I laughed out loud. Sharp, bitter, but somehow liberating. I thought I wasn't real family, I said quietly. Silence stretched across the line like a chasm. Then a weak response. I didn't mean it like that. But he had meant it. They all had. Every single word. That night, I poured myself a generous glass of wine and posted a photo from my Roman adventure. Me standing against a sunset over the Colosseum, free and genuinely unbothered for the first time in years. The caption read, "Sometimes exclusion is the greatest gift. Sometimes distance is the perfect cure. And sometimes the wedding that wasn't meant for you was never meant to happen at all." By morning, the likes and comments rolled in like an avalanche. Friends applauded my newfound strength. Strangers shared their own stories of family rejection. Meanwhile, my family's panic grew louder and more desperate, while I had never felt quieter or more peaceful inside. The next morning brought a voicemail from Mom. Her sobs were theatrical, almost rehearsed in their timing. Madison, please listen. We didn't mean any of it. We were under enormous stress. You're our daughter. Of course you belong with us. Just don't punish us now when we need you most. Punish. That single word hit me differently than she expected. I wasn't punishing anyone. I was simply absent in the same way they had made me absent at every milestone that actually mattered to me. By noon, Dad tried his usual authoritarian approach. Enough games, Madison. You have the money, we all know you do. Family pulls together in times like this. Time to step up and do the right thing. I set the phone down and let his words hang in the empty air. For years, I had stepped up repeatedly, paying medical bills without acknowledgement, covering utilities during their rough patches, sending money into what felt like a black hole that never thanked me. Yet when it came time for celebration and joy, I became invisible. That was the lesson they had written for me. Now, they were finally being forced to read it themselves. Later that afternoon, Aunt Patricia appeared at my doorstep unexpectedly. Her eyes darted nervously, her voice coated in false sweetness that made my skin crawl. Madison, sweetheart, your brother is absolutely heartbroken. You don't want this guilt on your conscience forever. Imagine the shame if this wedding doesn't happen because of family drama. I tilted my head slightly. Imagine the shame when your words about real family are the exact reason I'm not interested in helping. Her mouth opened, but no defense came. She left quickly, heels clicking against the pavement like a retreating army. That evening, I sat on my small balcony, watching the city buzz with life beneath me. I thought about the little girl I used to be, desperate for approval, clinging to scraps of affection, hoping desperately that one day they would call me enough. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I didn't crave their speeches, their staged photographs, or their conditional love. All I craved was the freedom I had already chosen for myself. As the night air wrapped around me like a warm blanket, I realized something powerful and liberating. They had disinvited me from their celebration, and in doing so, they had accidentally freed me from their illusion of family. By the fourth day, their panic had shifted into complete chaos. The wedding planner pulled out, citing unpaid deposits. Vendors refused service due to bounced checks. Whispers spread through their social circle like wildfire. The Cole family can't even pay their bills properly. Suddenly, their polished facade, the one they had built by excluding me, was crumbling for everyone in their community to witness. Marcus called again, this time with a tone I had never heard from him before. Not pride, not arrogance, but genuine fear. Maddie, I know we hurt you badly, but you don't understand the full picture. If this wedding doesn't happen, we lose absolutely everything. Our reputation, our social standing, our credibility. People will think we're complete failures. I let the silence stretch uncomfortably before responding. You thought I was a failure first. Remember Mom's exact words? Dad's dismissive laugh? Aunt Patricia's speech about real family meaning real family? That wasn't just a careless mistake. That was the truth you all believed about me. His breath caught audibly on the other end. We were completely wrong about you. The words hung heavy in the air, almost fragile in their honesty. But apologies aren't currency that can purchase forgiveness. They don't magically erase years of calculated humiliation and systematic dismissal. I thought of all the previous times I had rescued them without recognition. Slipping cash into Dad's account during his business struggles, paying off Mom's credit card debt secretly, pretending I didn't notice when my financial contributions were swallowed whole without even basic acknowledgement. Not this time. Never again. That night, I posted another photo. My plane ticket stub from the Italian trip I had taken instead of attending their wedding celebration. The caption was sharp but perfectly calm. Funny how the people who don't invite you to their table always expect you to pay for their entire dinner. Not anymore. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Friends cheered my decision. Strangers applauded my strength. Even distant relatives messaged me privately with quiet support and their own similar stories. Meanwhile, my family's begging doubled in intensity and desperation. But I didn't flinch, because I had finally realized their approval had never been genuine love. It had been dependence dressed up as family affection. Without my financial support, they were finally forced to face the brutal truth about themselves. By the weekend, the wedding was officially canceled. The venue released a polite but firm statement. Due to outstanding unpaid balances, the Cole family reservation has been permanently canceled. The news rippled through their social circles faster than gossip at a small-town diner. Neighbors whispered behind closed doors. Friends quietly backed out of travel plans. The perfect image my family had desperately clung to shattered overnight, like expensive crystal hitting concrete. I watched the fallout unfold from the quiet sanctuary of my apartment, sipping coffee and scrolling through the social media aftermath. Marcus's fiancée had posted vague captions about betrayal and disappointment. Mom stopped updating her social media entirely. Dad looked like a ghost in the grocery store security footage someone had shared. And me? I felt lighter than I had felt in years. Genuinely free. That evening, Aunt Patricia left me a voicemail. Her tone had completely transformed from smug superiority to desperate pleading. Madison, we absolutely shouldn't have said those cruel things. We were heartless and wrong. But can't you find it in your heart to help us rebuild what we've lost? We're still your family. Family. The word tasted bitter and hollow now. Real family means real family. Those had been her exact words. her verbal knife twisted at every family gathering. Now she wielded the concept of family like a protective shield, hoping I would conveniently forget how it had been used to cut me down. I didn't reply to her message. Instead, I opened my personal journal and wrote, "Exclusion reveals truth faster than any celebration toast. They taught me I didn't belong in their world. Now I finally believe them." When I closed the journal, I realized something profound had shifted inside me. I wasn't angry anymore, not in the burning, consuming way I had been. I was simply free. Free from their expectations, their emotional manipulation, their endless cycle of using me as financial support while publicly dismissing me. For once, their dramatic downfall wasn't my responsibility to fix, and that realization was the most poetic justice of all. Because in pushing me out so cruelly, they had accidentally taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. I never needed their conditional approval or their unstable table. I was perfectly capable of building my own stable foundation, and mine would never run on debt, lies, or emotional manipulation. The phone calls slowed significantly after the official cancellation, but not because they had given up entirely. It was wounded pride, their final weapon. Mom sent a single cutting text. "You've embarrassed us enough. I hope you're satisfied with yourself." Dad followed with something even colder. "Don't bother coming back to family events. You made your choice crystal clear." I read both messages twice, waiting for the familiar sting of rejection. But there was nothing. No sharp pain, no guilt, no regret. Just absolute clarity. They hadn't disowned me because I was cruel or unreasonable. They had disowned me because I had finally stopped being useful to them. Meanwhile, my actual life kept moving forward in beautiful ways. Work projects thrived under my focused attention. My savings account grew steadily, untouched by their endless financial emergencies. My circle of genuine friends widened with new people who valued me for who I was, not for what I could provide them financially. On Friday evening, a coworker invited me to a small dinner party. I laughed more genuinely in one evening than I had in months of family gatherings. No hidden agendas, no comparisons to my more successful brother, no invisible emotional labor to perform. Just authentic warmth and acceptance. Walking home under the soft glow of city streetlights, I realized something vital and life-changing. The family I had been desperately chasing my entire life wasn't the one I had been born into. It was the one I was actively building through genuine relationships. Still, I couldn't resist one final strategic move. I posted another carefully chosen photo. A dinner table full of laughing friends, glasses raised in authentic celebration, joy radiating from every face. The caption read, "Real family isn't defined by wedding invitations or blood relations. It's defined by unconditional love and genuine support." Tonight, I finally felt what that actually means. Within minutes, the comment section exploded with positivity. Dozens of people cheering me on, many sharing their own stories of overcoming family rejection and finding their chosen family. My inbox filled with messages of solidarity and support. Somewhere in their darkened house filled with uncomfortable silence, I knew my parents and aunt saw that post too. The same silence they had once used to erase me from important moments was now their daily punishment. A silence filled with my deliberate absence, my obvious growth, my joy existing completely beyond their reach or control. They had tried to cut me out of their lives, but all they had actually cut was their own financial lifeline and emotional support system. By the 7th week after the cancellation, their stubborn silence finally cracked under pressure. Mom called late at night, her voice trembling in a way I had never heard before. "Madison, we can't face people in public anymore. Everyone knows about the canceled wedding. Marcus's fiancée left him completely. We've lost everything we worked for." I listened quietly, my fingers tracing the rim of my coffee mug. The family who had mocked me as their disappointment now sat in the ruins of their own making. She continued desperately, "We were completely wrong about you, about everything important. Please just talk to us. Give us one more chance." Her words should have felt healing after years of rejection. But they weren't genuine healing, because apologies given in desperation don't carry truth or real remorse. They carry survival instinct. The next day, Marcus sent a simple text. "Maddie, I need you desperately. I'll pay you back every penny. I swear on everything." I stared at that message until my phone screen dimmed automatically. He didn't want genuine reconciliation or to rebuild our sibling relationship. He wanted financial rescue, and I was no longer in the business of rescuing people who had celebrated my exclusion. Instead of responding, I went for a long walk through downtown. The autumn air was crisp and clean, storefronts glowing with warm, inviting light. A little girl tugged her mother's hand excitedly, pointing at holiday decorations in windows. I found myself smiling genuinely, realizing how long it had been since I felt joy, completely unshadowed by family obligation or guilt. For the first time in my adult life, I didn't feel like the forgotten sibling, the family outsider, the emotional punching bag. I felt like a woman who had finally stepped confidently into her own story. That evening, I posted my final caption about this entire saga. A photo of my personal journal open on my lap, a single powerful line written across the page in my own handwriting. Exclusion isn't the end of your story. Sometimes it's the beginning of your real freedom. Comments poured in immediately, but I didn't read them all obsessively like before. I didn't need external validation anymore, because this message wasn't for my social media audience. It was for me, a permanent reminder of my own strength. And for the first time in 28 years, that felt like enough. The wedding that never happened became more than just family embarrassment. It became a local parable whispered in coffee shops and neighborhood gatherings, retold with raised eyebrows and knowing nods. How the Cole family built their dream celebration on arrogance and unpaid bills, and how the daughter they had rejected chose dignified silence instead of financial rescue. I didn't feel triumphant or vindictive about their downfall. I felt genuinely released from a prison I hadn't even realized I was living in. For the first time, I understood that revenge doesn't always arrive with dramatic confrontation and angry words. Sometimes it manifests as quiet, steady peace. A life lived completely beyond the reach of those who once dictated your worth and controlled your happiness. In my apartment, morning sunlight spilled golden across the hardwood floors. My coffee steamed beside my laptop, the rich aroma grounding me in a life that was finally, authentically mine. My phone sat silent on the counter, no longer vibrating with guilt-laden messages or emergency financial requests. No longer chaining me to the exhausting role of family fixer, silent savior, invisible provider. Silence used to wound me deeply. Now it wrapped around me like protective armor. I opened my journal to the final entry about this transformative experience. Pages filled with my handwriting told the complete story of exclusion, transformed into personal clarity. On the very last page, I wrote slowly and deliberately. They erased me from their perfect family table, but in doing so, they accidentally set me free. I don't need a seat at their unstable table anymore. I built my own solid foundation, and at my table, love never comes with conditions or financial expectations. That evening, I scrolled through photos from my Italian adventure. Sunsets over ancient Roman streets, peaceful meals in small family restaurants, laughter captured with kind strangers who had shown me hospitality without knowing my painful story. Those images weren't about running away from problems. They were proof that life could be genuinely beautiful without family approval, that joy could flourish outside the narrow, toxic walls they had built around the concept of family. The irony was sharp but perfectly poetic. They had disinvited me to celebrate love and unity. But in the end, they were left with nothing but broken promises, canceled dreams, and empty chairs where their support system used to sit. I, their designated disappointment, was the only one who had found something truly lasting. I didn't gloat over their misfortune. I didn't send cruel messages or rub salt in their self-inflicted wounds. I simply chose peace and authentic happiness. And in that peaceful choice was the sharpest justice of all. Because when the celebration speeches fade away, when the wedding guests go home, when the debt collectors come knocking, all that remains is truth. And the truth was crystal clear. I had always belonged somewhere. Not in their shadow, not reading from their script, but in the story I chose to write for myself.